I think we just do the intro. I think we should do the intro.
So
and go from there.
Kick it off.
Sure. Welcome to House Business, where we give ideas on the house. I'm your host, Marc.
And I'm Nicole.
And each week, each one of us is going to present a business idea, and we'll discuss all the considerations needed. Debates will be had. The best part is these ideas can be yours.
And this week, it's my idea to present. And they say that two things are true in life, death and taxes. And today we are not talking about taxes.
So let's get down to house business.
This right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. Money moves. Ooh. This right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh.
How are you?
I'm good. Let me see. I don't know what's really happened since I last talked to you. It's been like a year since we've talked. And by that, I mean like 3 days.
Wow, it seems like it's a new 2027 or something.
Yeah. No, I think things have been pretty chill. I'm just, prepping for my trip and everything. And I bought some new clothes. That's a big deal for me.
Okay, so you went shopping, did all that. Do you,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say online, or did you actually go in person to a store?
I can never decide if I'm picking online. So there's 20 things that I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick that today. And I never do. So yeah, I wrangled up my sister and we went to the mall.
Nice.
And I got a couple things. And so, yeah, so that's the most exciting thing that's happened, I think.
That's good.
Kind of low key, but how about you? What's up? What's going on with you?
Well, I feel like I had a crazy weekend when I didn't talk to you. We had dance recital craziness. So I sat through multiple recitals. Each were about 4 hours long. So while it is long, there's always maybe a 2-minute portion of that. That's exciting. So I was there, had Mother's Day, which was also, great.
Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
Thank you. So being pampered and doing all that. But yeah, it was just kind of a weekend at home with the kids, with the family. And,
nice.
The weather was pretty nice. So I'll take it. Ready for summer.
It was nice. I'm pumped for summer. I'm ready for it to be summertime. I like the cold, but too. I like a good summertime vibe. Yeah.
I agree. So you leave for your trip this week?
Yeah, on Friday. And then I'm gone for just 10 days. And it's with my buddy from high school. So we're just gonna see what happens.
Shout out, buddy from high school.
Shout out,
you guys. I hope you guys have fun.
If you know, you know. But
if you know, you know. Yeah. Is it direct flight over? Like you said, you're going to Ireland first. So is it direct from Chicago?
Mm-hmm. We're going to Dublin first, and then spend a week there, and then we're going to London. So
awesome.
Both places I've never been, and you're wearing the Irish green today. I can see that's pretty.
I am.
You were prepped.
I am. I'm actually. It's like a House of Heidi logoed apparel, so I actually got some merch.
Oh,
so
wow!
Shout out to that. Pretty excited.
Shout out House of Heidi.
House of Heidi.
Check
got
it
the
out.
Merch going. But yeah, testing it out, seeing how I feel. I like it so far. So it's
nice. Good.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those events coming up soon?
I do. I have, we're doing a yacht house vibes. So kind of a play on yacht rock and house music.
Totally.
It's kind of becoming a little more trendy and we're pretty excited for that. So it'll be fun.
That sounds awesome. Of course, you got to do it when I'm gone.
I know. You'll have to hit one of the next ones too.
No,
so.
Definitely. I'll make it out there.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I am really excited about your idea today. You hyped it up a little bit.
So this idea, it's one, again, that have talked about for a long time, not you and I, but I've been sitting on this idea maybe for 10 years. And to be honest, kind of laughing about the idea, but I think there's a lot to it. So
wow.
I did tell you this morning, I was like, you need to come prepped.
Yep. Yes,
and
you did.
Before we got on, we just discussed how much caffeine we both consumed today. So I think we're ready to go.
I just had an energy drink for 30 seconds before the podcast started. So I'm ready to go.
We're ready. So this idea actually came, it was at a family event and it was kind of a family reunion. So I'm going to set the stage for you because I do think it's important.
Yeah.
Family reunion. And we were doing the Sunday breakfast the day after. So we're all together, very casual. And I'm talking to a family member. His name is Dave. Want to give him some credit because we kind of both came up with this together. And also Dave is a Northwestern grad and an attorney. So I think maybe some correlations there with the spinning on these types of ideas. Shout out, Dave. But what happened was we had a video put together of one of our daughters. It was her birthday, and it was kind of her first year of life, if you will. So a lot of little videos snipped together of, kind of her being born, first steps, a lot of families in it. So it's really exciting for people to watch. And after we got done, he kind of looked at me and made a side comment like, do you think anybody makes these videos for when you die? Or are you going to make one of these videos for when you die? And okay, we're at breakfast, kind of laughing it off. But as we continued to talk about this concept, today I'd really like into, and I have a name for it, the idea of QR dead. So I'm going to let that sit there for a second. So I am proposing today a full kind of restructure, not restructure, I guess, because we're going to get into some people that would do it or not, but maybe a rethinking, if you will, of the business of death. I want to break that down a little bit. I have some numbers. And the concept of, maybe making it a little bit more affordable and up to date with current technology and trends. So I'm going to stop there just for a second, and then I'm going to get into the QR part. But I had to hit you with the QR dead because I think it's the best part of the whole idea.
What a name.
Right.
What a name.
Right.
I have a bunch of questions, honestly, but what a good, but my initial reaction, what a good approach to something that people probably don't try and reinvent or at least look at different ways around it. So I'm all ears still. I have more questions, but you have answers.
So let me dig into it a little bit. So I did pull some numbers, and this is where I think the idea has some standing. So, well, for one, let me back up and kind of the concept being, so QR dead, the concept being that there is this video like we discussed, but maybe it's a video, if you will, of someone's life with like a, somewhat of a production value of, the life, the message they want to give to people of their legacy. And also it leads to different ancestry connections that we can get to as well. But this video being able to be accessed through a QR code, similar to like a tombstone. So there's a few things here, and I'm trying to kind of keep it condensed for the sake of this discussion.
You're doing great. Yeah,
the way I'm proposing this is it is like a tiny little cement square with a QR code in the place of a tombstone, if that's the route you're taking, that you would scan. And it's taking up less space, it's less financially. And again, it takes you more to descriptive purposes and legacy of the person versus just the name, birth, and death date. So I looked into this concept. So for one, I think as we talk about this, the reason I think there's something here is when I was looking into the numbers of like the death care industry or death, it is 20 billion, like with a B, in annual revenue. Like that is just a huge area of, I guess, opportunity that is never changed, and it's never looked at from a new lens. And I think what I want to get at here when I say some of these things, I'm going to say this right off the bat, is I do think it's a very emotional, and I want to be like careful with my words, that when I'm saying opportunistic, I don't mean taking advantage of people. This entire concept would be in the end result to save people more money while also, coming out with a new product to make a profit. So a few other things. Average cost of a funeral or memorial in the US is 10 grand. That depends based on state, but the average being 10 grand, that's quite a bit of money. Current average tombstone is about $3,000. So again, like these are just kind of spaces that are taken up and are always done traditionally as a way of doing things. Yeah. So I think some of the roadblocks you're going to run into, or clearly this is not going to be for everyone. There's religious and cultural traditions that people aren't going to break. And I think that's probably why the industry as itself doesn't see total changes or overhauls. But I would just argue with technology, the interest in ancestry services like an Ancestry.com, a 23andMe, any of those services out there that are making connections, this is a different way of going about that and maybe updating, a very important life, if you will, milestone with the times.
Yeah. Okay.
I know.
I have a few questions.
It's perfect.
Big concept. Maybe let me try and understand the product a little better, because I think I'm getting it, but there's pieces I don't know if I fully understand. Now, is your idea for the QR code to be written by the person who is going to die? So that's, I guess, my first question. Is this a pre-obituary from the perspective of the person, or?
I think there's two ways of doing it. And I think, as we know, like death is uncertain, or I guess certain, but you don't know how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think there's two approaches, similar to someone that is very proactive and has a will or a living will. I think people already do somewhat write letters or make video testimonies. I think there is the idea that you could, if you're taking care of all your funeral expenses, paying for this in advance. But also, I think if something does happen unexpectedly, the idea that someone else could make it for you, or, have, with the help of this company, help make it for you. So videos at funerals are not a foreign concept. If you walk into kind of a Christian burial, I haven't been to all religious, but a lot of Christian burials, it's going to have, your photos and your video montages already. Mm-hmm. And those, an average cost, I looked up, is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,600 as is. So again, it's already kind of portions that people are doing to commemorate someone that could be streamlined into kind of a full product, if you will.
Yeah. And I from the experience that this prompts in my head is, like going to these kinds of funerals and looking at those videos, a lot of time they are kind of put on by the family in large part, from what I've seen. And, not that they, they're just kind of the quality of somebody who has some pictures and puts it together in memoriam, but there's not always a professional type feel, and it's professional type reverence to it. So it's kind of sounding like this is kind of the part where your QR code could come into play, where it's pre-done, it's done in a nice way. It can also take some burden off the family who isn't ready to go through all of those memories and isn't ready to go through that, because there's so much to the grieving process that, like, maybe they're not ready yet.
Yeah, I think
that could be harder.
I think part of the reason I like this concept, and it's not fully flushed out. That's why I want to talk to you about it too.
Yeah.
Like, I do have some holes as well, but I think part of it is it's such a difficult process for someone to go through. And it's like the last thing you want to do is be thinking about how you're collecting, if it's sudden, how you're collecting all these photos and videos to tell this person's story.
Yeah.
This is just a way to kind of hand that over to someone, hand it over to a company that can also, take care of. It's probably, you could be customizable, but at the most convenient rate of kind of taking care of this video, this obituary, and then having it in one place that's scannable by a QR code. And I think maybe, using the QR code as an example, maybe there is a more aesthetically pleasing. Like, I've also thought of the concept of, like, you're walking through a graveyard and you're seeing QR codes everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way that it's scannable or telling that story, but I think the idea of capturing technology and getting away from some of the, we'll say, like, the expense of the land and the stone and the kind of things that you feel you need to do during the process, I think is a concept.
Okay, so one of my questions back to you is going to be then, what would you envision putting the QR code on? And this is just what came to my mind, so you tell me what you were thinking. But the way that I interpreted how you were saying was, you've got a little stone tablet, and then you've got the QR code kind of etched in there or something like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or am I off base with the original idea?
No, that is where I was going. I think in an ideal scenario, when I think of this, it'd be really neat to have this be, again, you're incorporating so much technology that you're getting by without the stone. Like you're not even etching into the stone, but somehow there is a landmark. It has to be a landmark that's like going to stay there. I don't know if it's done with technology. That's a future thing. I don't think we're there yet. But as of today, yes, like in a stone or something that's going to stay.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're going to get away from. More and more people are. I think like there is a rise of cremation and getting away from the cemeteries, but I still think that's part of the appeal as well.
Does it have to necessarily target a replacement? I know that could be a big part of it too. I could also say I'm almost hearing it in a way of like this could also be some kind of addition to the process, because you're right. If let's say you're visiting a relative that you don't necessarily know, and maybe somebody older than you knows, you don't totally know what their life was all about. So if there's something that you could scan there, let's say you have the normal, concrete, the normal stone tab, and then you've also got like kind of a link there. It's maybe it might be a boost is what I'm also hearing too, rather than a replacement.
Yep. And so I did look this up. And so I looked into like, are there QR codes? And I did find like a QR code on a tombstone. I did also find there's a company that has like a sticker attachment to the tombstone. So I think it's also a concept that's taking place right now. I've never seen one, but the idea of the obituary being QR scannable, so you can hand out the cards if you kind of come through the memorial, but also these stickers that go onto the tombstone. So it's a concept that's a technology someone else is kind of already thinking of, and it's not fully being flushed out and, developed. I don't know how this company's doing or, what that looks like in terms of how successful it is. But I think the one thing that stood out to me is, again, this is a business that is already so expensive, already so like taxing when you're going through it. And so another add-on, or the concept of like feeling like you're getting kind of nickeled and dimed or just always adding costs to the funeral, I don't love that. So I think while it's an idea and it works for now, it's like, how could you take that maybe a step further, that it's cutting the cost, or maybe just even cutting the cost of that stone or area down. One thing I found when I was looking up into the cost is like, I wanted to think of your thoughts on this. So it said engraving for a headstone is $20 to $25 per character. And so I was like, well, would this be one character because it's like a fluid motion? Probably not. But,
good. Yeah.
Things like that came up.
That response is much better as sort of a rebuttal to mine, because you're right. It's rather than an add-on, it could actually make the whole process a lot cheaper. So I think that's a pretty good selling point, actually, as if this idea were to be implemented, it's a good way to market it rather than just saying it could be an add-on. Let's say number one, because some people say, no price is too much at that point.
Right.
But on the flip side, some people, can't do that necessarily. So I almost think that it works for both, actually, to be honest with you. So my reservation, and I don't know if this has come up in your research, but I would worry about, because QR codes are very fickle things. We've talked recently about, QR codes on menus and things like that. And we've all been in situations where the QR code is slightly off. It doesn't work like it should. So one of the reservations that I would have, and I don't know if you've seen this, does the kind of weathering effects that happen on the engraved stones, would that impact a QR code accessibility, especially if it's outside? Because you can't totally, account for that. Is that something that you come across, or what do you think?
I think that's a really great point. And the other thing being, to piggyback off that point, is like the idea that if you can think of like very historic gravestone markers now, right? Where like you can kind of still read the name, maybe they can be cleaned up a little bit, but also like in 100 years, is the QR code technology still going to be there? Like we're very much talking about that today. But what will that look like? I think it's just in general worth considering, like the idea that nothing changes with, I guess, and I think it's because of the tradition, like the tradition of a burial and death. And in our society that's rapidly moving, I would argue we're kind of in an industrial revolution again, living through that through technology. It's just that's something that's intriguing to me. And it's like, okay, how could you really look at that and do that in a respectful, tasteful, and way that you have a company that you're also, at the end of the day, this podcast is about becoming a millionaire and making millions off of. I do think a $20 billion annual industry is something to consider.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, there is money there as much as you would hate to think about it. And I think that's people do avoid thinking about it. But you hit on the reverence point. I think that's kind of the main focus of a business like this. Is the point of it is to have a more professionally done obituary or a legacy, right. Or you could also, it could be something that's a little bit more like I don't want to say alive, but it's kind of like more something that it keeps, people can continue to put things on there, or it can be a living memorial kind of thing. And I think that kind of thing is lost in a lot of ways, but in just the traditional sense, you don't necessarily can't put more things to it. Once the obituary is written, once the things are written, that is what it is. So, if a QR code is the best way to do it, that's great. But your idea, I think, really has some solid pieces to it, whether it's the QR code itself, but really what you're kind of, what I'm hearing is it's kind of a more online version of revering somebody who has passed away. And I think,
yes,
right?
Yes. And I hate to even use like the word, I think this is an interesting concept to talk about, because even saying like your online death, it seems so weird, but it is the world we live in, where I think you said it perfect. Like it can be done in a very tasteful way of telling your story and making sure that your legacy lives on.
Yeah. I do like the idea, Nicole. And I think that's got legs. I think it's already an uncomfortable. It's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about. I'm not even gonna lie.
Right.
Like even thinking about it and trying to think about it in a way that is respectful to everybody. Goes through this. Everybody has family members who've passed away and loved ones. So even trying to think about it from a business perspective, it's uncomfortable. And I think you would have to keep that in mind if you were going to pursue something like this. At least for me. I mean, but I think people would share that.
I think that's why I came at you with the name QR Dead, because it's like, it would almost have to be something that the individual is doing proactively. Like they are proactively planning out their legacy. They're proactively telling their story to their loved ones. Places I could see, even if you're someone like that, you're aging, you're going to age in a way you don't like, or just kind of being ready for it now. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but I have a will. It's not something fun to sit through, but you do have to think about that. And so I think that's where the name like softens it up a little bit. And I think to your point, it is, it probably is something that would have to be done by the person being like 100% comfortable with like, let's, this is going to happen, and let's make it the best we can. I don't know. And I think the only reason I bring that up, and it's not to discourage the idea, because I do think it's a good idea, but I think I'm thinking about it from the perspective of somebody who may use this idea or may take this idea, is to kind of walk into those, let's say, sales pitch meetings, for lack of a better term, with that in mind, because you're most likely, I don't know if you would necessarily be selling to. Okay, let me ask this to you actually. Would you be selling to, in your mind, would you be selling to kind of individuals? Would this be just kind of a separate service, or would you be selling it to, funeral homes, at large, across the country or wherever you're able to sell it? Do you see this more as a marketed to a service of a funeral home, or are you marketing this to kind of anybody who's going through that process either now or in the future? So what do you think? I think that's a really good point. And I guess I'm not sure how it works like across the country, but I think, where I'm at and ones I'm familiar with attending at, the funeral home usually has like the cemetery plot. So probably want to sell to both. I guess I had thought of this as something that you're going to individuals, because again, I think it takes someone with the mindset of maybe being a little bit more tech forward, tech savvy, thinking this is kind of a cool way to commemorate themselves. But I don't think it would hurt to go after the funeral homes. I think the thing there is part of the concept I said is if you're using less stone or less space, that's probably the group that has market share to lose. And so it's probably, to answer your question in a very long-winded way, I think you'd want to go after the individual. But I'd be curious to hear what others think about that.
Yeah, I think this is definitely where my knowledge gap is. I haven't really gone through that process necessarily, or at least with picking things
right
like that. You could tell I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable.
I know. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about
it's okay.
The pros
it's okay.
and cons. It's uncomfortable. I think also you have like the best point that if this is a concept you are going to take on, you got to be comfortable talking about this, and you got to be able to do it in a very professional, and the marketing is going to be, I would argue, maybe the most important part of this business. I don't know if you would agree with that or if you have a different thought in mind around that.
You would have to kind of toe the line between tasteful, respectful, but also selling a product. Now, I say that fully knowing that companies and businesses are doing this all the time. Whoever does the headstones, the funeral homes themselves, they are doing it in this tasteful way. So if it's me, let's just say, who's someone who is a little bit more uncomfortable talking about this kind of topic, I think I would prefer to pitch it to and try and sell it with, let's say, the funeral homes as an add-on to the services that they do provide. You've got a partner who already works in doing this in the most respectful way that they possibly can and giving the reverence to people that they deserve and that they're looking for their loved ones. So, I think there's definitely a lot of different ways to approach it. The marketing is definitely going to be you're probably right. I think it actually might be the hardest component.
Again, with many of our ideas we've already had, and like similar to the last one we talked about with QR codes, it really would come back to the tech and like where these are living. Because again, if you're selling this product, you're going to want it to live forever. So how is it, living in some cloud or, I guess the service you're paying for is honestly almost the cloud that's housing all of these videos and this material as well.
Yeah, that does prompt one more difficult part would be, what happens if I pay for this service and you go out of business, or what happens there? Where does it live, for lack of a better word? But that prompts just one more thought is like, what do you think the cost is going to be if you were to start something like this?
I think there's two components there. It's like you're storing this information, but then also creating this content. So we should put that as part of it as well, as like you are, I think you could upload something simple, like a simple video if that's what they chose. But if you are having something edited and produced, again, I think it's a much more affordable option than some other services you can have out there with funeral costs. But, that would be a part of it too, is like, who is putting this together? Are you having an AI software put these videos together? Do you have employees putting these videos together? What does that look like? As well as I think just the cost of kind of the marketing and, getting the word out too, the cost of time as well.
It's a good thought though. I really do. I do think that. And I think it's something I would have personally never thought of. Never.
Well, and that's why when I had to like set the stage, again, it was almost said as like such a side comment or kind of a small like joke we made at the time. And then as we started talking about it and thinking about it, it is something that has kind of stayed with me for years, because you go to a service or, time and time again, like this is an industry that just has not changed at all. I would argue the tradition itself is not comfortable or great either. Like even when we're getting uncomfortable about this, it's like, how could you add maybe a little bit of lightness or, again, I'm not in any way suggesting it's not like with reverence or anything like that, but maybe a little bit of lightness for your guest. If you're someone that's like, I really don't want all of my friends and loved ones to come to something very stuffy and to have to go through this. It's just kind of a way that I don't think it's changed at all. And I think there's opportunity for someone to consider that.
I do like it. I do
Did I
like
leave
it.
you speechless, Mark? You're like, I don't
No,
know
it's just,
say about
you know,
this.
I think you and I always go back and forth, kind of on fun things. We always try to kind of do kind of lighter things in general. It's just kind of things you and I talk about and things that you and I both like. And this is definitely, I think, out of the wheelhouse that we typically talk about.
Right.
I don't know what I was expecting today, but it definitely wasn't that. But maybe that's why it's good, because these aren't things that people think about. And I know we're just kind of going in circles on that, but who thinks to reinvent this kind of wheel?
I would challenge anybody listening. I guess where I would like to take this is I think this idea is not fully fleshed out, but I do think it's an idea. And so I would like to hear from other people what you think of it. If it's like this idea, you're with Mark and you're like, this is so uncomfortable, I can't believe we just listened to this. Or if you're like, hey, this has some legs and you missed these components.
I think the big kind of takeaway is that sometimes you have to look into industries that you might find uncomfortable, or you might think that people generally find uncomfortable, and there are markets to kind of tap into, and I think this would definitely count as one of them. So, hats off to you for a great idea. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on House Business.
Hey, now feels like a great time to mention that this podcast is produced by My4 Creative.
Couldn't think of a better time than now.
They work with businesses and organizations on all their video marketing needs, and they make it a super simple process.
I hear they're doing podcasts now. Is that true?
It is. New this year, they are offering podcast production, which is super exciting.
And believe me when I say, they make you look and sound your absolute best.
We look awesome. Learn more at my4creative.com. My4 Creative, video production simplified. Now, back to business. Oh, I did not expect you to be so uncomfortable, Mark, but I do like it.
I didn't really either, and I really try not to be. But I didn't want to fake it. That was my real reaction.
Well, I also think too, like to your point of like it's like, yeah, I don't want to talk light about it, but I'm also like, you need to be awake for this idea, Mark, because you're not going to know it's coming.
If you had given me heads up, I might have been like, okay, like I can be cool about it, but I think it's better. I think when you hit me like this, because I genuinely think people would be, and I don't mean this as it's not a dig at you, obviously, like it's not a dig at the idea either, but I think sometimes that's why people avoid entire lanes of thought and pitches and different, like our whole show here is to try and come up with new ideas that people can innovate with and, take pieces of and go from there. And I think if you're just going to ignore entire markets, it wouldn't be my first thoughts, and I think that goes for a lot of people.
Well, and I just think too of like having to, I'm coming at this from someone like having to attend funerals or wake services or, go and console someone grieving where, it's so uncomfortable as it is. And so I think it's just one of those every time, you're there because you care about someone, you love someone, and you want them to know you're supportive. But, there is always this feeling of like, oh my gosh, we have to go through this, or like, we have to have these like uncomfortable conversations. It's just this traditional, somewhat stuffy of a environment that it's like, how can you, not to make light of it, like for lack of a better words, but almost lighten the mood a little bit of celebrating this person that passed away. And I think thinking through that lens is oftentimes not thought of enough, making it a little bit happier.
No, I like the little bit. I think levity was the word that kept popping into my mind, of just bringing it up just a little bit more.
Lighten the mood.
Ooh, I did get uncomfortable. I won't even lie to you. I did.
I feel like you're like, oh my gosh, that's what you're going with. That's good.
But yeah, so I know you got some feedback that maybe you wanted to talk about from last week's episode. Do you want to throw that up now?
Yeah, I think the general feedback received was that people are enjoying the podcast, they think that we're really getting into our podcast voices, which I don't know how you feel about that, but that's exciting to hear.
I don't really feel it different. Maybe, when we listen to it, it'll be different. But yeah, it's like, I think we definitely get to our focused looks and like our focused mode, which, we don't always get into when we're kind of out and about and at bars and just, having these conversations like we normally do. So I could definitely see that of like, wow, they look really locked in right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit different setting than we might usually have these ideas. So
yeah,
I get we're locked in and, coming with notes and numbers and ready to discuss. So I think it's good.
Coming in uncomfortable sometimes, which is okay too.
Right.
Me today.
It's perfect.
So
I think it's great. And we just appreciate all of the feedback. So make sure to keep giving us feedback. As you know, you can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Also, we'd love your feedback on our Instagram page too. We do have House Business Podcast, where our followers have grown 120%, Marc, since our last recording. And I guess to close this out, if you do take this idea, I want to know all about it and invite us on your yacht. You can tell Marc all about it because he's going to be super uncomfortable. So
but I'll still come on the boat. I'll still be there. So
this right here feel like money. This right here feel like money. Ooh, money moves. Ooh, money moves. Ooh, this right here feel like money.